We spent a week in the hospital in Vegas straight after the surgery. Obviously, I had a ruptured appendix, so I had blood poisoning and septicemia in my blood system. So they said if I flew home that next day when I was supposed to fly home, 14 hours on the flight, there was like very high chances I could have died.
The AllStar app, the #1 app in the business. UFC, Bellator, One Championship, PFL, and more. Get the app right now. Link in description. It has been a long road, man, but you got the contract. You're making your UFC debut on home turf, which is a bonus. When you look back, at the last couple of years with the setbacks and the investment and all the canceled fights as well, how surreal has the journey been?
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. Obviously, the setbacks and the financial burdens and the time away from your family and kids and all those sacrifices, and then finally to come through and achieve one of those dreams and goals on the list is yeah, it's massive. It means the world, and just goes to show if you persevere and you stay dedicated and true to yourself, you can get there.
For sure, man. And the Contender Series fight was fight of the year for the show.
Yeah, yep.
A lot of adversity ahead of the fight, during the fight. We could see the physical toll, but how much of a mental battle was that whole experience?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. The lead up was there was stuff happening behind the scenes that no one really knew about. Obviously, visa and passport issues and all this sort of stuff, and still pushed through all that. And we got to the fight, and then obviously fight week with the appendicitis and pushing through that, and then the fight itself. Obviously, not being 100% healthy, but going out there and putting on that performance and just sort of laying it all on the line and going for that win at all costs. And then coming away with the contract after was phenomenal. But yeah, I think that the hardship over the last few years and all the stuff that you sort of touch base on right at the start there is it's what sort of has built that resilience to get me through these hard times and keep pushing forward. And yeah,
It probably built you into a person that can probably handle pretty much any kind of adversity that is maybe in your future at the highest level.
yeah, correct. I'm like trying to tell people now, like after what I've been through, it can't get any harder than that, right? So now it should be smooth sailing. Now it's about performing and being the best me, and like yeah, really being able to handle the pressure that comes along with the UFC and going through all those previous things. It's definitely like reinforced that now I'm ready for all these next steps that come along with this big promotion. Yeah.
How was it fighting, man, with appendicitis? Like, did you feel it during the fight?
Nah, like obviously, you're running on a bit of adrenaline, and it's sort of for me at that time it was like, man, this is my chance and nothing's stopping me anyway. So I'm going out there and I'm giving it my all. So even fight week with the pain that I was going through, and it was just push it to the back of your head. We have a job to do. We come here. We're in Vegas now. There's no, I can't call in sick when I'm at work already, right? So I'm sad. Yeah, I'm just pushing it to the back of my head, and obviously, yeah, we go out there, and then Dana sort of gives everyone a rev up before the show even starts. So then there's even more pressure. There's everyone before us is turning in these crazy fights, and then I'm just saying to myself, all right, this is it. I guess we're going into the firefight now. And yeah, we had a firefight, and yeah, we didn't get the result we wanted, but I think the performance in itself, and then obviously how I was health wise, and comes through, and we get that contract, and now we get to go out in a couple of weeks, three and a bit weeks, UFC 284, and perform on home soil, healthy and fit and sharp, and no stresses of visas and passport losses and all this stuff. I get to cruise just a local flight over to Perth, and yeah, get to put on a show.
Have you fought with any other injuries before worse than this?
Oh, like obviously nothing near the severity of what I fought with this time. Obviously, we all go into fights. You have niggles and these little injuries and sprains and strains and all that sort of stuff because you never get to a fight 100% healthy. And if you do, you're probably not trained hard enough. So, yeah, nothing as bad as that. But obviously now I know whatever it is, I can push through, and I know I can take myself to that limit if I need to. So it's a like we said just before, it's another thing that's instilled that resilience in me, and now I really have no stress about getting to a fight. I can get there half dead and still perform. So it's all good.
That fight on the Contender Series was early August, not too long after that. You got your surgery. After the surgery,
Yep.
how long did it take you to get back into full contact training?
Yeah, so it probably took about 6 weeks. We spent a week in the hospital in Vegas straight after the surgery. Obviously, I had a ruptured appendix, so I had blood poisoning and septicemia in my blood system. So they said if I flew home that next day when I was supposed to fly home, 14 hours on the flight, there was like very high chances I could have died. Obviously, you can't get the help you need in the sky, so yeah, it was lucky we got to the hospital the next day and sort of got it all underway. And yeah, it probably took about 6 weeks. We followed a good like Pilates program and to strengthen all that abdominal wall where they had to cut through and just to get that core strength back and make sure I had no hernias. And because that's the risk after the surgery, they make the incisions and you can get hernias if you lift or you wrestle too early. So we followed the plan. We did the Pilates, which is it sounds funny, but it's paid off. And then we got back into full contact and obviously been training hard since. And then we got the call up for the fight and we're ready to roll now.
Are you continuing with the Pilates?
No, not now. So I finished my program, but now I'm doing all my strength and conditioning through Gav Pratt at the UFC PI. So he's got a few cool exercises that are definitely correlated and mobility related and stuff like that. So yeah, it's all sort of reinforcing and compounding interest now.
UFC 284, Perth, Kleydson Rodrigues. He's a young Brazilian talent. What are your thoughts on him and the skill set?
Yeah, he is. Obviously, he's young still. I think he's 26, 27. So he's young and he's hungry. He obviously come through the contender series, same way I come through. Obviously, I've had a fair few more fights than Kleydson. I think he's got good skills, and I think our two styles match up really well to put on an exciting fight once again. I think the UFC is very smart how they strategically choose their matchups and where they place us in the card. And yeah, I think they've pretty much made this fight to get this whole crowd on their feet and get cheering early in the second prelims and yeah, lift that roof off Perth and hype the crowd up. So I think it's going to be a cracking fight.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be fast and furious, so to say. He
Definitely,
has,
yeah.
like you said, a fight on the Contender Series that he won, and then he made his UFC debut and lost a split decision to CJ Vergara. CJ Vergara, he's very, very good. What was
Yep.
your assessment of those two fights?
Yeah, so watch the contender series. It was hard to take away from much from the contender series because his opponent really didn't give him much to deal with, much offensive attacking, taking away his space or shutting the space down. He sort of let Kleydson be at will and use his space how he wanted. Obviously, the fight with CJ, you seen CJ, he sort of took that kick in space away and sort of created him and took his offensive attacks away. It was still a very close fight. I think it could have that fight could have went either way. Close fight. CJ obviously got a couple of takedowns. Had a lot of ground control in the second round. So I think that's maybe what won it for him. But yeah, still a close fight, and CJ is great. So it obviously puts Kleydson up there with like the high skills, and he's on the level of good high level. And I'm excited for the fight. Get to test my skills against someone that's young and hungry, and go out there and put my best foot forward and prove why I'm here for a reason.
Where are you working nowadays for training camp?
So training camp work. So I'm basing myself out of CMBT in Burleigh Combat Training Facility, and then I do all my boxing and Platinum Boxing in the ring. So very close vicinity. We're about 5 kilometers from each other, and then obviously all my strength and conditioning stuff through Gav Pratt at the UFC PI. And like luckily this camp I got to go down to Wingdang with Alex Volkanovski and do like about 4 or 5 weeks down there with him and the team and Joe and see the level of those guys and see how they train and how cerebral they are and how smart they are with with planning everything out. So that was a great start to camp, and then yeah, obviously finishing the back end of camp up here at home.
Yeah, also when you were down at freestyle, there were other like coaches there, right? Other training partners.
Yeah,
Who did you get to work
correct.
with?
Yep. Yeah, so got to work with obviously Frank Hickman. He was in the room doing some obviously a lot of wrestling for Alex because who he's fighting, Islam Makachev. There's going to be a obviously Islam wants to wrestle a lot, and so Frank was there, and then Craig Jones was there. He's brought guys in from the states that are wrestlers, and obviously Alex has taken all the right steps and keys to make sure he gives himself the best chance of winning. And yeah, I think February 12th he wins and he becomes double champ and he shocks a lot of people.
You got Frank Hickman, and then you got Craig Jones. Man, that's a
Craig
pretty
Jones, yep.
solid little grappling duo, right, for you to work with.
Yeah, definitely. Just being around those guys and seeing their take on positions and options from all these different positions and even offensive wrestling as well. Obviously, they're not just doing defensive stuff, they're doing offensive and showing all these little tricks that sometimes you look past, sometimes you miss, and just having a high level guy you can really trust and ask a question and believe the answer. So that's been massive for my camp this time. Yeah.
So when you go back home, who are the close training partners for you?
Yeah, so back home up at Combat. So obviously I've got James Sargison. He's a BJJ black belt. He's a little bit heavier than me, 70 kilos, 68. So that's perfect, I think. Then I've got Tim Moore. Obviously, Tim's been a local sort of probably like one of the foundating like sort of guys on the Australian scene, fighting for 10, 13, 15 years now, and obviously a lot of fights under his belt, fought for World Series of Fighting and like that. Got a lot of good guys at the boxing gym my weight that have had 30, 40 amateur boxing fights. So that's massive. Then got like my coaches at Combat Miles. He's going the strategic side. Got Darcy Vendy. He's looking a lot at the game planning and wrestling and all that sort of stuff. And then yeah, we sort of made our own little team. There's obviously the group classes and that there, but we do our thing and get in and put the work in and obviously make sure we're touching the stuff we need to for the fight. And yeah, it's all looking good.
Yeah, definitely. Shout out to Tim Moore. I remember him fighting a few years
Yep.
back. Man, the man is an animal, perfect guy to have in your corner. Um, the stage is set for you, man, in Perth. How do you want to perform in front of that home crowd? What do you envision?
Oh man, I'm already having these envisions of walking out and the crowd just going crazy. And I put a post up maybe a week ago and like asked the fans like what Aussie like banging song do you want me to walk out to? So they've all put their 2 cents in and give me some cool Aussie songs. So once I'm walking out to one of these songs, I think the crowd will be on their feet and they'll be screaming and cheering, and that's going to give me the energy. And obviously, he's going to have to deal with that in himself and being in my hometown in my country, and then obviously, yeah, performing just the way I know I can. Obviously, my last performance in the Contender Series, even the way I was, I can still go out and perform. So this one allows me to know I'm healthy, to know I'm fit, to know I can just go pull the trigger and do what I want to do and do what I need to do and walk out with that debut victory on home soil.
For sure, man. And I think a lot of people will just look at the record and say, "Oh, this guy, he lost his last fight. How is he making his
Yep.
UFC debut?" So basically, you didn't get to show who you really are. You know what I mean? In this fight, in that last
Yes,
fight.
it's hard. It's hard, right? Like I don't even know how many percent I went into that fight with. Was obviously having appendicitis for a week, plus having it rupture the day of the fight, and then having the blood poisoning and all that sort of stuff. Like, how much does that take away from your performance and the cerebralness and the all that sort of aspect of fighting? Fighting's a smart man's game. So when you're in that much pain and you're already down on the cards, it's like, did you really show who you are and how you can fight? Luckily enough, I put on a good enough performance to get Dana in the cage after the fight. It's obviously the first time that's ever happened in the history of Contender Series, and he doesn't even usually go in there after some fights in the UFC. He doesn't even hand the belt over sometimes. So for me, that was massive. To get a call from him and Mick Maynard in the hospital and get that contract was was yeah, obviously a dream come true coming out of the surgery and a big shock to the system. And yeah, now we get to go do it fresh and healthy and really show where I'm at on this world level.
How do you view the flyweight division right now? Because it seems like, if you look at 2022, guys that like debuted at the beginning of 2022, they can become a contender in 1 year
Yep.
span. You know what I mean? It's pretty quick how you can rise up the ranks.
It is. It is. The flyweight division is actually it's on fire at the moment, right? You got Figueiredo and Marino there fighting for the fourth time, first time that's ever happened this weekend coming up. So all eyes are on the division at the moment. Got a lot of guys coming through contender series and building the division. And yeah, as you said, if you put some quick fights together and you turn around and some good performances, you can climb those ranks quite quickly. And yeah, you can become you can go from being a debut fighter to a contender within a year or 2 years and climb those ranks fast. And obviously, for me, that's the plan. I'm 33 now. I don't have 10, 15 years of fighting left in me. I'm going to get in. I'm going to make it quick. I'm going to, yeah, try to steamroll this division, have 3 fights a year and get to the top. And yeah, that's my vision and goal is to quickly climb those ranks, like you said, and make statements and yeah, get into that top 10, top 5 and push forward for the title.
That's why everybody loves the Anzacs, man, because everybody has that same mentality. They're just like, throw me in there with whoever
Yeah, there's
and
like
put me up.
obviously we have a fighting spirit instilled in us, right? Like the Anzacs, the wars, the Gallipoli War, the we have that instilled in us, and I think the world's just finally starting to realize that now. Like us Australian New Zealanders, we've always been so far away down here under the radar, sort of not taken seriously. But now we're getting names on the scene with obviously Alex and obviously Israel, Rob Whitaker, like all these guys, Jack Madalena, he's made like crazy statement this year. And now like even Casey O'Neill, like 3, 4 fights, all wins. She's like, so the world's starting to notice us now, and obviously now COVID's sort of dissipating a bit and getting out of the way. That we can get back onto the world scene and make these trips overseas, and yeah, make more statements.
There you go. A lot of eternal MMA champions. Let's just say that. A lot of eternal MMA
Yes,
champions.
sir. Like obviously Eternal has been the number one promotion here in Australia for a few years now, 5, 6 years. And they're doing things to build the sport here in Australia. Obviously, traveling interstate, doing different shows, they're really stepping outside of what the old promoters used to do, 1 or 2 shows a year and disappear for 2 years and then come back and have another crack. And Eternal stayed consistent. They're giving fighters platforms. They're on Fight Pass now, and Cam and Ben are doing great things for the athletes coming up. Like when I first started fighting, there was nothing like Eternal. You fought on these underground cards that no one knew about, no one had heard of. You fought, maybe 12 months later, you get another fight. Now the fighters coming up, they've got this great platform to fight on locally. Even C class, B class coming up, like Cam's daughter Robin, she runs another fight show. So it's like it's given these fighters a massive platform to grow quite quickly.
There you go, man. February 11th, UFC 284, Perth, Australia. Shannon, the Turkish delight. Thank you so much, man, for the time. I'm so happy for you that
Awesome, John.
you got the contract, and I can't wait to see you perform at 100%, man.
Thank you, my man. Thanks for the time and having me on once again. And yeah, pleasure. And we'll catch up soon and do another one.